Hey, what's going on? It's Bill Burr, and it's the Monday Morning Podcast for Monday, September 14th, 2015. What's going on? How are you? I have a very special guest here, one of my favorite all-time comedians of all time. But first, I have to read his amazing intro here. Brian Regan, everybody, is going to be performing live at Radio City Music Hall. And the first time ever in the history of Comedy Central. Brian, you might as well talk at this point. I've already said.
Yes.
How many specials would you guess that Comedy Central has in their mountain?
Wow. I probably quite a few, but
7, 8 million.
Yeah, 7 to 8 million. I think is.
Well, this one.
I'm going to bet on the over. I'm going to say it's 9 million.
9 million. I like that. 9 million specials. This is the first guy who's ever had the nerve to tape a stand-up special live on Comedy Central, and he's going to be doing it, let me see if I can, on September 26th at 9 p.m. live from one of the most legendary venues of all time, Radio City Music Hall. I'm looking at the whole press release. You got 5 stars from Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Dennis Miller, Joe Rogan, Patton Oswalt, the Mark Maron, the who's who, and we all love you, man. You've been. What's it like to have been a comic for a quarter of a century?
It's a huge honor, man. When making audiences laugh is great, makes you feel good, but to also, make the comedians feel like you're doing the right thing, that makes you feel even better.
I know my fun in this podcast is going to be torturing you with compliments, because I can tell. That was the most uncomfortable I've ever seen you. Hey, what's it like to be a legend, Brian? Talk about being a legend. I'd say...
I'll go right into a bombing story. Let me tell you how about when I bombed, and that wasn't so legendary.
No, man, I've been doing this shit for 23 years. I'm old now. I am an old man now. I know that every time when I try to do stand-up out in Silver Lake. I'm not saying the kids are bad. It's just I definitely feel like, wow, man, I feel like that generation gap. But you've been since I started, for those people unfamiliar who've been living under a stand-up comedy rock, like Brian basically goes out and for 90 straight minutes, it sounds like a jet is landing, how hard this guy kills. And and unlike me, you couldn't be the more polar opposite of me. I don't even think you say heck.
No, sure I do.
You say that, but
yeah.
Okay, but still.
I know I do some hecks and some dams.
But dude, your act is airtight. No one can be like, oh, he's just what? He's just writing perfect jokes. I'm sorry, Brian. I hate to torture you with this, but there's no other way to go with this. You're an absolute master.
You're very kind, very incredibly kind, and I cannot thank you enough. That's very
no eye contact. No eye contact. Yeah, and I remember. I'm going to keep going here. I remember when I first started headlining in the late '90s. The legend back then was when you booked Brian Regan, you would do 2 shows in one night, and you would do 2 completely hour-plus. Totally clean, absolutely destroying sets. You had the A set and the B set, and you had there was always this urban myth. He's got 2 notebooks. They're both filled up. One's the first show and one's the second show. The guy's got 2 hours and 40 minutes of A-level material.
I called it the Idiot and the Oddity.
Oh,
those were the two shows. They were 2 different 1-hour shows, and I would go to a comedy club for a month. And I would alternate them. And the idea was if somebody came out and they liked what they saw, they'd go, wow, he's got another one. Maybe we'll come back and see the other show as well. So
now, did that come about? Because back then, when you were coming up, you had to be anointed to do a special. And nowadays, you just need somebody with the camera, and you can put it up however you wanted. Back in the day, HBO had to say, you know what, you're one of the 6 people that we're picking this year, or... I didn't even think Comedy Central was really making too many specials back then. So I was just wondering, did you wrote a special at that point? Did you just say, to hell with it, I'll just keep writing? How did you end up with that much material at one time?
Actually, just because I'm always trying to write stuff, but it came about because, do you remember when people were starting to do the one-man shows?
Oh, yeah.
Like Rob Becker defending the caveman, they would take stand-up and then kind of make it into a little story with a beginning, middle, and an end. And
take out a few laughs. You sit down behind a desk.
Yeah, I mean, Rob Becker's is great, but there were a lot that were just, seemed like kind of repackaged stand-up, and people were telling me, well, you should do a one-man show. You should do a one-man show. And I'm like, I like stand-up. I like the way stand-up works. I don't want to do a joke and then have a serious point and then walk across the stage and have a tear come out of my eye.
Sort of dramatic lighting.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what's so funny? I just totally relate to that because I've had so many people where, like, my dream was always, if I could sell out improvs. That was the dream. If I could just go to me, when I was starting out, when somebody said, "Oh, I have a gig in Houston this week," or "I'm in Minneapolis this week," like to me, there was nothing cooler than that. Like this guy gets to get on a plane and fly, and people know who he is, and he gets to go in there. And back then it was you get to wear the sport coat, right? And you get to go out and be a comedian. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I don't know how you feel about this, but whenever. You could have like the greatest special ever, and then they're always just like any TV, any movie. Like it's always looked at. It's got this weird thing where stand-up is really respected by people, but then it's also looked at as just like this stepping stone into doing like a like a sitcom or being some sort of actor or something like that. And I always thought like, no, dude, this is the thing. This is the thing. It always will be the thing. I can't get fired from this. I'm always going to be employed, and it happens in real time. There's no cut. Let's go back and do it again, and you're sitting in a trailer for 14 hours.
Yeah, it's, there are, a few people who like it as an end result. I don't say a few. There are a lot of people who love stand-up comedy, but yes, for a lot of people, it's a stepping stone to get into acting, to get into a TV show or movies, and that's great. But I like it as it is, and... people do always ask about the thing you don't have,
Yeah.
I just remember for years, people coming up to me, have you ever done the Tonight Show or whatever? And when I hadn't, and like, no, I haven't done that. And,
you should call Jay.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Yeah. No, the first year I was working at the comic strip in Fort Lauderdale, I worked in the kitchen, I would like cook burgers. They would let me go on stage at the end of the night. And a guy came up to me after a show and said, Rodney Dangerfield is playing down the road at the Sunrise Musical Theater. He goes, why don't you go down there and open for him instead of this? Like all it took is me to just know where the theater was. Like I just walked down there.
Oh, is he in town?
Where is it? That way? So I just go down there and I open for him in a theater?
You just show with your apron, your greasy apron.
I'm such a moron. I'm working in a kitchen here in a comedy club. I could go right down the road and open for Rodney Dangerfield. Thanks for the suggestion.